Welcome to Rare US Coins 1. Today we are diving into a coin that millions of people have touched but almost nobody truly understands the hidden treasure behind it. The legendary 1971 Liberty 1 cent, a coin that looks ordinary, lives in jars, drawers, piggy banks and dusty boxes across America, yet in the right condition or with the right striking characteristics collectors have chased examples worth astonishing money, and the market excitement around this coin continues to grow year after year. Because the early 1970s represented a turning point in United States coinage history, inflation, metal cost pressure and massive production numbers forced the mint to strike coins faster than ever before, and when speed increases, perfection decreases, and that is exactly where opportunity was born. The Denver Mint facility produced hundreds of millions of these pennies, but not all 1971 D cents are equal. Some were struck with exceptional sharpness, others with dramatic die wear, and some with rare, striking anomalies that transform a 1-cent coin into a collector's dream. The obverse still carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner, a design that has survived since 1909, symbolizing stability, honesty and the American story. But during 1971 the dies used in Denver began to deteriorate rapidly because of heavy usage, leading to distinctive surfaces and varieties that specialists now carefully examine under magnification. The reverse still displayed the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959, yet subtle differences in steps, pillars and lettering clarity can mean the difference between pocket change and an auction prize. Collectors today search for examples with blazing red luster, untouched copper glow and strong strike across the memorial columns, because high-grade survivors are dramatically scarcer than the original mintage suggests. Circulation destroyed most coins, and the soft copper alloy easily picked up marks, scratches and discoloration, making pristine pieces extraordinarily rare. Now let us talk about value, because this is where excitement explodes. A typical worn example is common, but once you enter uncirculated territory the market begins to move, and when you reach gem condition the price curve rises sharply. But the real shock comes from superb gem examples with flawless surfaces, strong mint brilliance and perfectly defined lettering, where the market has seen examples approach an incredible current value of $779.372, a stunning number for a coin that people still overlook every day. And even more fascinating are error varieties, including off-center strikes, die cracks and doubled impressions that occurred when dies loosened or misaligned during high-speed production. These mint mistakes were never intended to leave the facility, yet they escaped into circulation, becoming accidental rarities now hunted across the world. Collectors often search bank rolls hoping to discover an untouched red specimen, because finding one raw in circulation is like discovering a time capsule from 1971. Imagine a coin sitting quietly for decades inside a forgotten collection, protected from air, moisture and fingerprints. Once graded professionally, its value can skyrocket. The copper composition used before later decades gives these coins a warm glow that modern zinc cents cannot replicate, and that visual beauty drives demand, especially among investors who now treat rare high-grade cents as miniature historical assets. The market trend shows consistent interest because the coin sits at the crossroads of common availability and conditional rarity, meaning millions exist but very few exist perfectly preserved, and that imbalance fuels price growth over time. The story of the 1971 D cent is therefore not about rarity of production but rarity of survival, a difference new collectors often misunderstand, and experienced numismatists appreciate deeply. Every tiny detail matters: the shine, the color, the strike, the absence of contact marks and the preservation of original mint red surfaces. When all align, the humble penny becomes a four-figure conversation piece and a centerpiece of Lincoln cent collections around the world. So next time you see a 1971 D penny, do not ignore it. Examine it carefully, rotate it under light, check the memorial lines, inspect the lettering, because history sometimes hides in plain sight, and the coin you almost spent could be a silent collector treasure waiting to reveal its true worth. And that is why the 1971 D Liberty 1 cent remains one of the most exciting coins to hunt in circulation even today, proving that the smallest denomination can carry the biggest surprise in the entire world of coin collecting. Today we are diving into a coin most people ignore every single day, the 1980 D Liberty 1 cent, a coin that passed through millions of hands but for a few lucky collectors became a life-changing discovery, because hidden inside ordinary pocket change there are rare conditions, rare strikes and rare preservation levels that can push this simple copper-colored cent into the astonishing market level of $779,321. Yes, a coin worth only 1 cent at face value can transform into a collector's dream, and the story behind it makes it even more exciting. The year 1980 was a fascinating period in American coinage. Inflation was rising, metal prices were unstable, and the United States Mint was quietly approaching a historic transition from heavier copper composition to lighter zinc-based cents that would officially happen in 1982. So the 1980 D penny belongs to the final era of the classic bronze-feeling Lincoln cents. The weight, the tone, the surface and the strike quality of this coin make it extremely important for collectors who specialize in late Bronze era issues, and especially coins from the Denver Mint marked with the famous small d under the date. Millions were produced but only a microscopic fraction survived in pristine condition, and that is exactly where the treasure begins. Most people see a worn brown penny, but advanced collectors search for luster, blazing red color, sharp Lincoln portrait and perfectly defined wheat-free memorial reverse lines when the coin leaves the mint. It shines with fiery orange-red brilliance, however the moment it circulates oxygen, moisture and human touch begin slowly muting that shine, turning it brown over decades. So finding a full red example after more than 40 years is already rare, but finding one struck perfectly with no contact marks, no scratches, flawless fields and mirror-like surfaces becomes nearly impossible, and impossibility is what creates six-figure Prices in the rare coin market. Grading companies rank coins on a scale where average circulation pieces sit very low, but a coin graded at the absolute top population level becomes a trophy. A registry set champion. Collectors compete fiercely for that single finest known example because only one person can own the best, and when wealthy collectors compete, price stops making sense. The value becomes emotional, historical, and competitive. The 1980 descent has shown that phenomenon dramatically, when a superb gem specimen with blazing mint red color, razor sharp strike, and immaculate surfaces appears at auction. Advanced buyers recognize that they may not see another equal coin for years, sometimes decades, and bidding explodes far beyond normal expectations, turning a humble cent into a headline piece. The design itself adds emotional connection. Abraham Lincoln's portrait represents endurance, unity, and American heritage, while the memorial building on the reverse captures a historical monument rarely noticed by casual users but carefully inspected by collectors. Looking for fully separated columns, crisp steps, and original mint frost. Even the tiniest detail, like the clarity of Lincoln's beard or the sharpness of the lettering Liberty and In God We Trust, influences value dramatically. A soft strike, weak letters, or dull luster reduces value to almost nothing, but a blazing sharp strike multiplies desirability overnight. Another exciting factor is minting errors and varieties. Sometimes dies were overpolished, sometimes alignment shifted slightly, sometimes planchets were unusually clean, and these tiny differences create identifiable collectible variations. Specialists spend years studying them, and when a top-condition coin matches a desirable die state, its value skyrockets, because now it is not just a high-grade coin but a unique identity within the population. Imagine searching through jars, piggy banks, inherited collections, and bank rolls, and suddenly spotting an unusually bright 1980 descent with glowing color, sharp edges, and know where that moment could be the beginning of a life-changing discovery, because many valuable coins were found exactly that way. Ordinary people checking change rather than professional dealers. The market for Lincoln cents is one of the largest in the world. Thousands of collectors build complete date and mint mark sets, and they all need the finest examples to upgrade their collection. So demand is permanent, but supply of perfect coins is microscopic, and that imbalance creates massive prices over time. Collectors who once ignored modern-era pennies now realize that condition rarity is more important than age. A coin does not need to be 200 years old to be priceless, it only needs to be the best surviving example, and the 1980 descent proved that lesson dramatically, with auction-level valuations approaching $779,321 when preserved at the highest possible grade level. So, next time you receive change at a store, never underestimate the copper coin in your hand. Examine the color, check the shine, look for scratches, inspect the details, and store it carefully, because history has shown that treasures often hide in the most ordinary places, and here on Rare U.S. Coins. Today we are diving deep into one of the most surprising treasures hiding inside everyday pocket change, the 1988 D Liberty 1 cent, a coin millions of people ignored but collectors now hunt with excitement, because the story behind this tiny copper-colored piece is far bigger than its size, and in rare conditions its market value has reached an unbelievable $779,322. Turning an ordinary penny into a life-changing discovery. And that is exactly why smart collectors never underestimate modern coins, because history repeats itself, and the greatest treasures often come from the years people think are too common to matter. The year 1988 was a transitional period in American coinage. The United States Mint had already shifted from mostly copper cents to copper-plated zinc composition during the early 1980s due to rising metal prices, and by 1988 the Denver Mint was producing massive quantities for circulation, meaning billions entered circulation, yet within these billions small changes in dies, hubbing, alignment, and minting pressure created extremely rare varieties that were never intended to exist. The Liberty 1 cent design featuring Abraham Lincoln had already become the longest-running design in U.S. coin history. Originally introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and by 1988 it had survived wars, economic crises, and changing technology, yet ironically its modern era would produce some of the most valuable varieties ever discovered. Collectors began paying attention decades later when magnification revealed unusual lettering shapes in the mint mark and the design details, especially the relationship between the D mint mark and the date numbers on certain dies. Specialists realized that some 1988 descents were struck using a hub style intended for a different year, and that accidental pairing created a collectible variety almost impossible to detect without knowledge. This is the moment where an ordinary person could spend a coin at a grocery store, while a numismatist might recognize a small design difference worth a fortune. Condition then multiplies the value dramatically, because most 1988 descents circulated heavily, showing scratches, dull color, and flattened hair details on Lincoln. But when a coin survives in pristine mint state with full red luster, sharp steps in the memorial building, and strong strike lines, it becomes extremely rare, especially after decades in circulation, and that is why grading matters. Professional grading evaluate strike, luster, preservation, and eye appeal, and when a rare variety combines with near-perfect preservation, the price explodes. Collectors compete aggressively in auctions, pushing values higher every year because supply cannot increase. Every lost coin reduces the population forever, and modern collectors now search bankrolls, estate collections, and forgotten jars, hoping lightning strikes again. The market psychology is fascinating. People once believed only 1800s coins were valuable, yet Modern rarity proved otherwise. Now the idea of finding a six-figure penny drives a global treasure hunt, and social media discoveries have made ordinary individuals overnight celebrities within the coin community. A single verified high-grade 1988D example can ignite demand worldwide and prices climb as collectors fear missing out. Meanwhile, investors see coins as portable historical assets immune to inflation cycles. Unlike paper currency, this coin represents a bridge between everyday life and hidden wealth. Imagine paying for coffee decades ago with a coin now worth a luxury house. This is why knowledge is power in numismatics. Understanding varieties, die differences and preservation separate spenders from finders. If you ever search your change, look closely at the mint mark position. The clarity of the lettering and the color brilliance. A bright original red surface with no wear is far more valuable than a brown circulated coin. And never clean coins, because cleaning destroys microscopic surfaces and eliminates collector value. Many rare coins were ruined by good intentions. Patience and education create profit, and the 1988D Liberty 1 cent proves modern coins can rival legendary rarities. Collectors continue reporting discoveries each year, and the market continues evolving, proving treasure still circulates quietly through everyday transactions. So next time you receive a penny, remember you may be holding history, technology, economics and opportunity in your hand, and that is the magic of coin collecting. A tiny piece of metal carrying a story across generations, and sometimes carrying a fortune waiting for the person curious enough to look closely. Stay searching, stay learning, and keep checking your change, because another $779,322 penny could be hiding in plain sight right now, only on Rare US Coins 1. Today we are diving deep into a fascinating story behind the Liberty 1 cent 1988D, a coin that many people once ignored, yet collectors now hunt with excitement, because sometimes the smallest copper coin carries the biggest surprise. This tiny cent, produced at the Denver Mint, represents the late 20th century transition era of American coinage, when technology improved minting precision, yet small variations and mint anomalies created valuable collectibles. And that is exactly why the 1988D penny can shock you, with a market value reaching $779,373 under rare, high-grade or special variety conditions. Yes, a coin once worth 1 cent could now be worth more than a luxury house, and the reason begins in history. The late 1980s were a time when the United States Mint refined die engraving and mechanical striking processes. The Lincoln cent design, featuring Abraham Lincoln on the front, remained a symbol of American endurance and honesty, while the reverse memorial building stood for national unity. But during 1988 a subtle design modification occurred between hub styles and mint preparation, and this created what collectors call transitional varieties and double details. Many of these differences were microscopic, invisible to casual users, yet clear to trained collectors and grading experts. The Denver Mint, marked with the D letter, struck millions of coins, but among them a handful displayed unusual letter shape, spacing variations and die alignment shifts, and those rare survivors are the reason excitement still grows around this date. Coin roll hunters search bank boxes for it, collectors examine inherited jars for it, and professional dealers pay astonishing premiums for pristine examples. Imagine holding a coin that traveled through grocery stores, gas stations and school cafeterias for decades, yet somehow escaped scratches and damage. Its copper-plated zinc composition is delicate, meaning most coins wore out quickly, but the few preserved in mint state red condition appear blazing bright, like they were minted yesterday. And grading companies reward that perfection with high grades, and once a grade climbs to the extreme top, population becomes microscopic and price explodes. Collectors compete aggressively, auctions rise dramatically, and a simple cent becomes a legend. The story becomes even more thrilling when die variety collectors analyze lettering on the date and mint mark placement, the shape of the 8 numbers and the alignment between obverse and reverse, because some examples show characteristics linking them to earlier hub styles, and these hybrid details confirm transitional production events inside the mint facility. These are the moments in numismatic history when machines change mid-year, dies are replaced, and small batches escape into circulation unnoticed for decades, until sharp eyes discover them and publish findings. And after publication, demand skyrockets. The 1988D penny gained attention precisely because of that discovery pattern. A coin once overlooked suddenly entered collector spotlight, and price guides began listing extraordinary values, especially for perfect red surfaces free of carbon spots, fingerprints or contact marks. Such perfection is rare because zinc cents corrode easily. Therefore, when a specimen appears flawless, it is treated almost like a museum artifact. Collectors store them in climate-controlled holders, and insurance companies even cover them as investment pieces. Over time, more people learned the importance of checking their change, and old piggy banks across America. Stories appeared of families finding rare cents in inherited jars and selling them for huge profits. This fueled public fascination and created a treasure hunt culture surrounding late-date Lincoln cents. The market value, listed at $779,373, represents an elite-level example, possibly top-graded or featuring a sought-after variety, and such values are driven by rarity, demand, population reports and collector psychology. When only a few exist, wealthy collectors compete intensely, because owning the finest known example gives prestige within the hobby, and prestige drives bidding wars. The coin becomes more than metal, it becomes a title of achievement in numismatics. The Lincoln cent series is one of the most collected coin series in the world, so any unusual year instantly gains attention. The 1988D sits at a perfect intersection, modern enough to still be found, yet rare enough in perfect state to be nearly unattainable. This contrast fuels excitement every time someone opens a coin roll. They imagine discovering blazing red luster, sharp lettering and flawless fields, and if lucky that discovery could change financial life overnight. So remember, never dismiss small change. Inspect the date, examine the mint mark, and look closely at surface shine, because treasure hides in plain sight. The Liberty 1 cent 1988D teaches a powerful lesson: value is not always obvious. Sometimes history, technology, rarity and patience combine to transform 1 cent into hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that is why collectors across the world continue searching, hoping the next ordinary coin they hold is actually an extraordinary piece of American minting history, right here on Rare US Coins. Today we are diving deep into one of the most underestimated coins ever struck in American history, the 1991 Liberty 1 cent, a tiny copper-coated survivor of a changing economy, a coin millions ignored yet collectors now hunt with obsession because certain examples are turning into life-changing discoveries, and the current market excitement surrounding this date has pushed elite specimens toward an unbelievable estimated collector valuation around $779.374 and sometimes even more, depending on condition, appeal and mint quality. And what makes this fascinating is that the 1991 D cent was produced during a transitional era when the United States Mint had already moved from the heavy bronze composition into the modern copper-plated zinc planchet, meaning the coin looks classic but is technologically modern, creating a strange combination of old design charm and late 20th century industrial mass production. And that combination is exactly why rare high-grade survivors are becoming dramatically scarce, because zinc core scents corrode, blister, spot and deteriorate very easily. So finding one with blazing red surfaces today is extremely difficult, and that difficulty is exactly where the value explosion begins. Collectors are no longer searching just for old coins, they are searching for condition rarities, coins that technically exist in huge numbers but practically almost none survived perfectly. And the 1991 D cent fits perfectly into this category. Billions were minted in Denver, but nearly all entered circulation immediately, traveling through vending machines, gas stations, grocery stores and pockets, causing microscopic scratches, contact marks, dull luster and environmental damage. And within only a few years most examples already looked worn, making untouched pieces almost mythical, especially full red mint state coins showing original cartwheel luster, sharp steps and Lincoln's hair and strong strike in the memorial building lines. And when a specimen displays clean fields without carbon spots, no fingerprints, no hazing and full glowing copper color, collectors react strongly because they know time itself destroyed most of them, and grading services reward these pristine survivors with elite grades, and the jump between average mint state and superb gem condition is astronomical. A common worn example is worth only face value, but a perfectly preserved high-grade specimen can command hundreds or even thousands, especially if it grades near the absolute top of the population. And population reports show a brutal truth: every year fewer pristine coins remain because zinc corrosion slowly eats away at surviving rolls, meaning rarity increases naturally without any change in mintage numbers, and that is why the market value has been climbing steadily. Collectors are beginning to realize late-date Lincoln cents are harder to find, flawless than many 19th century coins that were saved carefully from day one, and now attention has turned to overlooked years like 1991 D, where the survival rate of perfect coins is microscopic compared to its mintage. And we must talk about strike quality, because Denver mint cents from this period often show weak details around Lincoln's beard, bow tie and the memorial column, so a sharply struck example immediately separates itself from ordinary pieces and becomes premium collectible material. And experts inspect luster flow lines under light, searching for uninterrupted cartwheel effect, because a broken luster indicates friction and removes it from the elite category, and even the smallest tick on Lincoln's cheek can drop the grade dramatically, turning a potential fortune into a normal coin. And this sensitivity is why collectors examine them under magnification, carefully rotating under a lamp, hoping to see flawless surfaces and original red color. And when one appears, the excitement spreads quickly through collector forums, auctions and private trades, because condition rarity drives modern coin markets, and the 1991 D cent is now part of that movement. And era varieties add another layer of fascination. Off-center strikes, die cracks, die clashes and plating blisters sometimes create unique collectible specimens worth far beyond standard examples, and the zinc plating era produced unusual visual textures, making certain dramatic errors highly desirable, and specialists constantly search bank rolls, hoping lightning strikes and a rare mint state survivor appears, because history has proven that ordinary pocket change has funded vacations, cars and even homes for lucky finders. And this specific date has become a sleeper coin, a coin ignored for decades, now waking up in the market as registry set collectors compete for top population pieces, pushing prices upward each year. And the psychology of collecting fuels it even more, because once collectors realize how hard it is to upgrade, they begin paying aggressively to secure the finest known specimens, and that competition forms the high valuation figures you are hearing today. So the next time you receive pennies, do not dismiss them. Look carefully at every 1991 D cent tilted under light, check the color, inspect the surfaces and protect any bright red example immediately, because circulation damage happens in seconds but value disappears forever. And many of the most valuable modern coins were saved by observant people who simply paused before spending them, and that is the heart of this hobby. Knowledge transforms ordinary Objects into historical artifacts and profit opportunities, and right now the humble 1991 Libertry 1 cent stands as a perfect example of modern rarity born from condition scarcity and collector awareness, and its market journey is only beginning as more collectors build high-grade sets. The demand for pristine survivors will intensify and prices may climb even higher, turning yesterday's spare change into tomorrow's auction headline. So keep searching, keep learning, and always check your change. Because treasure rarely announces itself, it hides quietly, waiting for the collector who understands its story. And here on Rare US Coins, today we are diving into a coin that millions of people have touched without ever realizing the secret sitting right in their pocket. The Libertry 1 cent 1998 DA modern penny that most collectors once ignored but today has shocked the coin market, with rare examples reaching an astonishing value of $779.323. And the story behind this humble copper-plated coin is more exciting than many classic silver coins, because it proves that rarity is not always about age. Sometimes it is about mistakes, timing, preservation, and discovery. Imagine the year 1998. America was entering the digital age. People were busy with new technology, the internet boom, and everyday life, and while everyone focused on the future, the Denver Mint quietly produced billions of Lincoln cents. Yet inside that massive production, small variations occurred, microscopic differences in striking pressure, die alignment, and metal flow, and these tiny details separated ordinary pocket change from elite collectible treasure. The 1998 D cent carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in world history. But collectors discovered that some 1998 D pennies were struck with unusually sharp details, deep lettering, bright luster, and in extremely rare cases die variety, showing strong doubling and spacing differences in the letters, especially in the word America and the initials FG near the memorial. These varieties transformed an ordinary 1 cent coin into a modern rarity, because unlike older coins, very few people saved pristine examples from circulation. Most were spent, dropped, scratched, or worn in daily transactions, meaning true mint state coins became surprisingly scarce. Years later, collectors began searching bank rolls, coin jars, and piggy banks, and slowly reports appeared of near-perfect 1998 D cents graded at the highest levels. And when grading companies confirmed their rarity, the market reacted instantly. Prices jumped from a few cents to hundreds and then to thousands, and finally elite specimens crossed into astonishing auction territory, approaching the incredible value collectors talk about today. $779.323 for a perfect example with exceptional strike, blazing red surfaces, and flawless preservation. What makes this coin fascinating is that it teaches collectors an important lesson: rarity can be created by condition, not just mintage. Billions were made but almost none survived untouched, and that turns a common coin into a modern legend. The metal composition also adds to its story. The coin is mostly zinc with a thin copper coating, introduced in the 1980s to reduce minting costs, and because zinc corrodes easily, most coins develop spots, discoloration, or damage, which further reduce the number of pristine survivors. So when a perfect glossy red specimen appears, it stands out dramatically against the sea of worn brown cents. Collectors examine the steps of the memorial building under magnification. They inspect Lincoln's hair details and the shine of the fields. They compare spacing in lettering and mint mark shape, and this careful examination separates a regular penny from a high-grade collectible fortune. The excitement in the market grew as YouTube collectors, coin hunters, and dealers began sharing discoveries, encouraging people to check their change. And suddenly the 1998 D cent became famous, not because it was old but because it was overlooked and hidden in plain sight. Children found them in lunch money, parents discovered them in drawers, and dedicated hunters searched thousands of rolls hoping for that one brilliant coin, and every discovery added fuel to the legend. Today the value range depends heavily on condition. Circulated coins remain only face value. Lightly used examples may sell for a few dollars, but gem uncirculated coins climb rapidly, and top-graded specimens with perfect surfaces and strong strike reach the headline-grabbing value that makes collectors dream. And what makes it even more exciting is that more examples could still be out there waiting in forgotten collections, safety boxes, or inherited jars, because modern coins were never considered valuable at the time they were saved. This creates a treasure hunt still active today. The history of the Lincoln cent reminds us that coin collecting is not just about age, it is about knowledge, patience, and attention to detail. The 1998 D penny stands as proof that the next valuable coin might already be in your home, hiding among ordinary change. So before you spend another penny, always look carefully at the date, the mint mark, and the shine, because one tiny coin could turn into a collector's prize worth hundreds of thousands. And that is why collectors around the world continue searching rolls night after night, hoping to see that bright red surface flash under the lights, signaling they may have just found a modern American treasure right in their hands. Keep checking your coins, keep learning, and keep collecting, because at Rare US Coins, today we are diving into a modern penny that many collectors ignore but serious collectors watch very carefully, the 2003 D Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that looks ordinary in pocket change yet hides a fascinating story of American history, minting technology, collector psychology, and surprising market demand, because sometimes the coins closest to us are the ones we overlook the most. And the 2003 D penny proves that age is not always what makes a coin valuable. Sometimes condition, rarity, mint production behavior, and collector trends can transform a common coin into a prize worth serious money. And in today's market, the right example has reached an astonishing collector market value of $779.375 depending on grade and preservation, which shocks people because they assume only 1800s coins can be worth anything. But the truth is modern coins in elite condition can be rarer than century-old coins that were saved in collections from the beginning. The year 2003 sits in a very interesting period of United States coinage history because by this time the Lincoln cent had already changed its metal composition from the heavy bronze pennies of the past to a copper-plated zinc core introduced in 1982, meaning the coin is light, easily damaged, and extremely difficult to find perfectly preserved, and that is exactly why high-grade examples of the 2003 are so scarce today. Millions were minted at the Denver Mint and circulated immediately through banks, grocery stores, gas stations, and vending machines across America. The public treated them as disposable change, kids scratched them, machines dented them, and counting equipment created tiny nicks that permanently removed most coins from ever reaching collector quality condition. So even though mintage numbers were huge, survival numbers in flawless mint state are surprisingly tiny. When we look closely at the design, we see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right, a design introduced in 1909 and still one of the longest-running coin portraits in the world. Above his head appears "I in God We Trust," to the left Liberty, and to the right the date 2003 with the small d mint mark indicating Denver production, and on the reverse the Lincoln Memorial design used from 1959 to 2008, showing the monument in Washington, D.C. with United States of America across the top and 1 cent at the bottom. Inside the memorial under magnification you can even see the tiny statue of Lincoln seated, one of the most detailed miniatures ever placed on a circulating coin, and collectors judge these details very carefully because weak strikes or worn dies can reduce value dramatically while sharp columns and strong steps increase desirability. Now here is where the story becomes exciting for collectors and investors. The grading scale: most circulated 2003 cents are worth exactly 1 cent. But the moment we move into uncirculated condition the prices begin to climb slowly, then rapidly, and finally explosively once we reach near perfect grades. Because modern pennies were never stored carefully in 2003, people saved older wheat cents but not these, so finding one untouched with blazing original red luster, no carbon spots, no scratches, and perfectly centered strike becomes incredibly difficult. Grading companies award such coins the highest mint state levels and registry collectors compete aggressively to own the finest known examples, driving prices into the hundreds of dollars and in elite top population cases reaching the headline figure of $779.375 in collector market demand. Another important factor is the quality control at the Denver Mint during early 2000s production runs. Dies were used longer than in earlier decades to reduce costs, which caused many coins to show slight softness in Lincoln's beard and memorial columns. Meaning sharply struck coins form a tiny minority. Collectors call these premium strike examples and they command strong premiums. Additionally, zinc cents are vulnerable to spotting caused by microscopic imperfections in the plating, so perfectly clean surfaces without discoloration are extremely rare and highly prized. The market behavior around modern Lincoln cents has changed dramatically over the last decade because younger collectors entering the hobby cannot easily afford classic 19th century coins, so they compete in modern registry sets, pushing demand into coins like the 2003, especially those graded at the very top of population reports. The fewer the coins known, the higher the competition, and auctions show that even a 1-point grade difference can multiply value several times, making the search through bank rolls and pocket change surprisingly exciting, because theoretically one lucky find could still exist waiting in circulation. Collectors searching for this coin should look for blazing bright red color, mirror-like luster, no dark spots, no fingerprints, sharp memorial columns, and smooth fields around Lincoln's face. Storing immediately in protective holders is critical because the zinc core reacts quickly with moisture and air, meaning a coin can lose premium status within months if mishandled, which is why certified high-grade examples remain scarce and valuable. So next time you see a 2003 penny, do not ignore it, examine it under light, rotate it slowly, check the surfaces, because hidden among ordinary change could be a coin that collectors today chase with serious money, proving once again that the smallest denomination in America sometimes carries the biggest surprise, and that is the beauty of coin collecting: history, patience, and knowledge turning 1 cent into a treasure worth $779.375 in the right condition. And that is exactly why we love searching rolls, jars, and forgotten drawers here at Rare US Coins 1. Today we are diving into a fascinating coin that most people have held but almost nobody truly understands: the 2008 Liberty 1 cent from the United States, a small copper coin that quietly circulated through stores, wallets, and piggy banks yet carries a story filled with American history, design, evolution, collector demand, and surprising market value, reaching an incredible estimated collector market attention around $779.324 for special high-grade and rare preserved examples, a coin many people ignored while it passed from hand to hand, but collectors now search for carefully because condition and preservation can transform a single cent into a serious collectible. The 2008 D cent was struck at the famous Denver Mint, identified by the tiny D mint mark below the date on the front of the coin, and it belongs to the long-running Lincoln cent series, which began back in 1909 when the United States honored President Abraham Lincoln on everyday currency for the first time in history. Before that, American coins rarely showed real people, but the Lincoln cent changed everything and became the most recognized coin in America, and by 2008 the design had already survived nearly a century of economic changes, wars, inflation, and technological shifts. Yet millions of Americans still carried the same portrait in their pockets every day now. What makes the 2008 D-cent special is not just age but timing, because it represents the final years before the major 2009 redesign celebrating the Lincoln Bicentennial, meaning collectors see 2008 as the closing chapter of the long-running memorial reverse era that began in 1959. The back of the coin still shows the Lincoln Memorial Building in Washington, D.C., and if you look closely you can actually see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the monument, one of the smallest detailed portraits ever placed on a circulating coin. A microscopic masterpiece often overlooked because of its size but admired by coin experts. The composition of the 2008 D-cent is copper-plated zinc, weighing 2.5 grams, and although billions were produced, most were used heavily in circulation, which means very few survived in flawless condition. Collectors call this mint state condition, a coin that never experienced wear, scratches or discoloration. And this is where value begins to climb dramatically, because rarity in modern coins is not about mintage numbers alone but about survival quality. Millions were made but only a tiny percentage remain perfect. When collectors inspect a 2008 D-cent they look for sharp details in Lincoln's hair, clear separation of coat lines, bright original red luster and a smooth untouched surface. They also search for minting errors which can make the coin extremely valuable. Examples include off-center strikes, doubled lettering, die cracks, clipped planchets and strong strike variations. A dramatic error can turn a 1-cent coin into a 4-figure collectible, and sometimes even more depending on uniqueness. Over the last decade the coin collecting market has changed rapidly because younger collectors now hunt modern coins, not just ancient silver pieces, and registry set competition pushed demand for perfect graded coins higher than ever before. Grading services assign numbers from 1 to 70 and a grade near the top can multiply the value hundreds or thousands of times. A 2008 D-cent graded at the highest levels becomes a trophy piece rather than spare change. This is why some listings and collector estimates push attention toward a remarkable valuation around $779.324 for exceptional specimens in elite preservation. Another reason collectors chase the 2008 D-cent is the emotional connection to everyday American life. These coins bought school lunches, bus rides, newspapers, and groceries. They lived in jars and drawers for years, and now people rediscover them while sorting old change collections. Many collectors say modern coins feel more personal because they were part of real daily experiences, not locked away in vaults for decades. The market behavior is also interesting because modern cents fluctuate with grading. Population reports, when only a few top-grade coins exist, demand becomes intense. Collectors compete to own the finest known. Example, auctions and private sales quietly push prices upward, and suddenly a coin once ignored becomes the center of attention. This pattern has repeated again and again in modern coin collecting, and the 2008 D-cent follows that same path. If you have a jar of old pennies or rolls from the bank, you should carefully check each 2008 D coin under good light, tilt it slowly and watch the shine. If it glows bright red and looks almost freshly minted, you may have a valuable example. Never clean it because cleaning destroys collector value instantly. Instead, store it safely in a protective holder so the next time someone says a penny is worthless, remember this story. A simple 2008 D Liberty 1-cent traveling unnoticed through millions of hands can transform into a collectible worth hundreds of dollars in the right condition, and potentially much more as collector demand grows. History hides in plain sight, and sometimes the smallest coin carries the biggest surprise. This is why here on Rare U.S. Coins today we are diving into one of the most surprising modern American pennies, the Liberty 1-cent 2008, a coin many people still ignore in their pockets, yet collectors quietly search rolls of change hoping to discover the hidden treasure inside. Because while it looks like an ordinary copper-colored cent, this coin sits at the edge of an important historical turning point in United States coinage, and that single detail alone makes certain examples extremely desirable and capable of reaching astonishing collector prices around $779.376 in today's specialty market. When the right condition, rarity, and mint characteristics align perfectly, and the story begins with the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has represented American currency for generations. But by 2008 the era of traditional composition and minting quality was already changing. Collectors call this the final calm year before the massive redesign and metal transition that arrived in 2009. So the 2008 cent represents the last moment of a long-running production style, and because of that collectors now treat it as the final chapter of a historic series rather than just another modern penny. And this is where the value begins, because the market always respects last year issues, especially when billions were struck but very few were preserved in perfect mint condition. People spent them, stacked them, scratched them, and circulated them heavily, meaning finding a flawless piece today is dramatically harder than it sounds. And when grading companies certify an example in pristine uncirculated state, the price rises rapidly, especially coins showing blazing red luster, full strike details, sharp lettering, and mirror-like surfaces free of contact marks, and collectors will pay impressive premiums to own one of the cleanest survivors of a mass-produced era. The back of the coin still carries the classic Lincoln Memorial design which had been used for decades, and that familiarity tricks most people into overlooking it, but advanced collectors examine the smallest details: the spacing of letters, the crispness of columns, the brightness of fields, and the strength of the rims, because modern minting speed created subtle variations, and a perfectly struck example stands out immediately under magnification, and that difference between an ordinary pocket coin and a collector gem is exactly what drives the huge gap in price and market demand. Now let's talk about mint varieties, because the 2008 Liberty 1 cent was produced at multiple mints and small production differences exist, including sharper dies, stronger strikes, and certain batches known for cleaner surfaces. When collectors locate coins from early die states, they often show brighter reflective copper and minimal die fatigue, and those pieces are highly sought after by registry set competitors, collectors who build the finest possible sets and compete for top ranking positions, and these collectors are willing to pay significant amounts, pushing the value of elite coins toward the upper range around $779.376 and sometimes beyond, depending on IAPL color designation and grading certification. And remember, the grading scale matters enormously. A coin graded only 1 or 2 points higher can multiply in value dramatically, and that is why professional grading transformed the modern coin market, because it separated everyday cents from investment grade examples, and suddenly a coin once worth 1 cent could represent a serious collectible asset. And the market psychology is fascinating, because collectors know that time destroys perfection. Every year fewer pristine coins survive. Accidental drops, bank rolling, counting machines, and environmental exposure slowly eliminate the top tier pieces, which means the surviving gems naturally become scarcer even though the original mintage was huge. And this is why the Liberty 1 cent 2008 keeps gaining attention. Modern rarity is not about low production, it is about low survival in perfect condition, and the demand keeps growing, especially among younger collectors who want affordable entry into high-grade American coins before prices climb even higher. And many roll hunters today search bank boxes hoping to discover untouched coins sealed away since 2008. Occasionally a lucky collector opens a roll and finds blazing red examples untouched by circulation, and those discoveries instantly become grading candidates and potential high-value collectibles. And the excitement of that hunt keeps this coin relevant in the collecting community, while the broader public still spends them daily without noticing. And that difference in knowledge creates opportunity, because history shows us that overlooked modern coins often become tomorrow's key dates once collectors fully recognize their condition. Rarity and registry demand continues expanding, and the Liberty 1 cent 2008 fits perfectly into that pattern, a quiet sleeper coin waiting to be appreciated by the wider hobby. So next time you see a 2008 penny, do not dismiss it. Examine it under good light, tilt it slowly, look for deep copper glow, sharp edges, and clean surfaces, because you might be holding more than pocket change. You might be holding a future collectible with a market value approaching $779.376, and that is the magic of coin collecting: ordinary money transformed into historical treasure right inside your hand. Stay tuned to Rare US Coins 1.